my name is Judith and welcome to our April sew-along of this beautiful bohemian inspired dress. So it's a beautiful dress with really voluminous sleeves, and you have a front yoke with sides and a back yoke here with also a side piece and a beautiful gathered skirt that you can use more as a short skirt or a long skirt. And another little detail is a beautiful bias bound neckline and tiny little strings with little clochettes at the end. So they're little bells made out of fabric just to give this beautiful bohemian dress a little something special. So we'll do it together, and we're going to do it with French seams. So it's not exactly the same way as it's explained in the instructions of the pattern, but I'm going to show you a really nice way of doing it so all your seams inside are nice and clean. So for this beautiful bohemian inspired dress, you can use lightweight fabric like viscose, and you can also use cotton. Like this dress is a printed cotton. I'm going to show you the sew-along on a beautiful block print that we have at Core Fabrics on a base of cotton also. You can do it in lightweight linen, so you can not block print, but use different colors and play with it as you like. So you don't need a lot of additional supplies. If you want to, you can use a little interfacing on the cuffs and on the sides for the pockets to reinforce the optional pockets, and just thread. So it's a really easy fabric, little interfacing, thread, and you're good to go. You can use all these tools. That's what I used when I did some of the samples. So measuring tape, measuring gauge if you want to do the French seams. I use it a lot. When you use lightweight fabrics, I love to use microtex needles, and I use like a 10 instead of using like a regular 12. You need pins, you need pen to mark. There's a lot of circles on this dress, so you have to mark all your circles and your information. I did a little unpicking, so a good seam ripper, a good pair of scissors, and little pelican scissors like this. In French we call them pélican. In English we call them what? Duck-billed. So in French it's a pelican, but in English it's a duck. So we'll be using these little scissors because when we do French seams, we do have to cut the seam allowance a lot. So you have all those tools that you will be needing for making our dress. So to make the dress, here are the pattern pieces you will need. So you have your piece A, that's your front bodice, and your side panel here. You have the same thing for the back. So you have your back panel and your side back like this. You will need your piece to do your neck binding. You will also need 2 of your tie pieces and your tiny little clochette piece here. So I will show you how to put all of that together. Let me put this aside. And you will also need your sleeve and your cuff. So as you can see, it's an awkward shape. You have circles, but I'll show you how to put all of that together. And lastly, we have our skirt and our optional pocket. So you need 4 panels like this. If you want more of the mini length, you will cut here. And if you want the midi length, you will use the whole piece. Since we're doing French seams for our dress, this sew-along, you have to analyze your pattern before you start sewing. French seams are easier to do when the seams are straight, or not curved. So you have to look at your pattern and decide the order of sewing that you're going to do to have the best way of constructing your dress using French seams. So let me show you the way I decided to work around all the pieces and the order I decided to sew all my pieces together. So if you look at my front and my side front pieces, if I would do a French seam here, I would go up to there, but then I would have to put my sleeve like this, and this would be really hard and awkward to do as a French seam. So what I decided to do is attach my side to my sleeve first, and then do my fronts like this. So then when I put my pieces together, like this is gathered, so it's going to be like this. I'm going to have more of a, well, still curved, but it's not at an angle when I'm going to sew my French seam. So it's a way of analyzing your pattern instead of, you know, sewing this and then adding the sleeve. We're going to, it's a way of like doing Legos and trying to figure out like the smoother way to do your French seam. So we'll do it with the fabric, but I just wanted to show you our plan of attack before we start. So before I start assembling my dress, I always like to prepare my pieces. So it takes a long time to cut the pattern, cut your fabric, but then you want to start really fast to do your dress, but take time to prepare your pieces. Then it's going to go really smooth when you want to put everything together. So on my sleeve, I already did my 2 rows of gathering stitches. And for this dress, since I'm doing it with French seams, you want to, sometimes if it's a 5/8 seam allowance, we tell you to do the first row at like 3/8 and the other one at 3/4. But since we're doing French seams, you don't want to have a thread at your 3/8 right away. So I did 1/4 and 3/4. You'll see later on, it's easier that way. And you can do so the top of your sleeve, the head of your sleeve, and you can also do the bottom for your cuff. All the pieces that I know needed to be pressed, like my cuff, I pressed it already, and I did my fold, so that way it's going to be all ready when it's time to use it. I did the same thing with my BODICE neckline, my hem of my skirt. So I have everything done and ready to go, so that when I'm like adding those pieces, I don't have to measure everything, and it's going to go one step after the other really fast. So now we are going to start with our bodice pieces. So your piece A is this one. So you want to take your 2 pieces and sew from the bottom up to your circle, like this. And then we're going to take our seam allowance and we're going to press it 1/4 and then 3/8. And we just have to top stitch on both sides and do a little tack. So you end up with your front like this, which is your opening. And you can do like a little stay stitch around your neckline so that it doesn't stretch. You can do the same with your back piece. So here I have my back. So here I have a seam, but on your pattern it's on the fold. It's just that I used what I had left of fabric. So you have your back and you have your front. So I'm going to go on the sewing machine and I'm going to stitch all the way down on both sides. You can do it from the front, or you can turn and do it from the back side of your fabric, and you want to go as close as possible to your fold. So So here you can see I top stitch on one side. Here you can do like a little tack just to make sure that your thread doesn't break here. And then what we are going to do is put our shoulder seams together. We want to do a French seam, so we're going to put our wrong sides together to start. And I like my French seams to be very, very small, so I don't get a lot of bulk in my seams. So I'm going to pin it like this, and I'll go on the sewing machine. So I'll do 3/8. I'll cut down my seam allowance, and my second pass will be at 1/4. So I'll end up with a really, really nice small seam allowance of my French seam. So I'll go on the sewing machine, and I'll do both my shoulders at 3/8. Here, as you can see, I sewed at 3/8. So what I'm going to do is take my scissors, and I'm going to cut really close to my seam, my stitch line, I mean, like this. And the same thing on the other side. Okay. And then I'm going to go with the iron and press my seam like this. So I'll fold it really flat like this, and I'll give it a little steam again. So now everything is nice and crisp. I can do the same thing on the other side. And then I'll go and sew at 1/4. So here, as you can see, I have a beautiful, very small French seam. So I can open it again. And I want to make sure that I don't see any fabric poking out on the other side. Little hairy. So we don't want hairy seams. And then I can press it again to the back. So now it's all nice and clean on the inside, and it looks all nice on the outside also. The next step is to make our little ties that we have attached at our neckline. So you need your pattern piece called tie. So you need two. It makes very tiny, tiny little ties. So you're going to fold your fabric in half, and on the machine, you're going to sew it at 1/4. If you're not comfortable with making tiny ties like this, you can always sew it at 1/8, and it's going to be easier to turn. But since the pattern piece is on the bias, it's really easy to turn it. You can either use like a tool, or you can also use a thread and a needle just to pass it through, like we explained in the instructions. Sorry. And you end up with a beautiful, beautiful little tie. Let me show you. So the one I made is a little tie like this. So they end up being super cute and super tiny. So now I'm going to show you how to add your little piece of fabric and make it into a little clochette. So a clochette is the French word for a little bell. So I ended up writing clochette in the instruction because I couldn't remember the English name for it, and nobody changed it, so it stayed, and it's my little clin d'oeil, my little wink to you guys of a little clochette in the instructions. So to do the clochette, so you have your little tie, and you have your pattern for the clochette. So wrong side to wrong side, you're going to fold your pattern piece like this, and you're going to put your tie in the middle like this. You're going to fold it again on itself, and you can add a little pin here to grab the tie and the clochette together, and you're going to sew from the tip here all the way there, and tack it at the end to grab your tie. So let me show you on the sewing machine. So when you have a small pieces like this, a small piece, it can be a little hard. So what I like to do is start in the middle here at the end. So I'll take off my pin, make sure that my tie is placed in the middle. Let me grab it. Okay, there we go. And I'll put my foot and down. So here I'll go a little back and forth. And then like this. Oops, see, it's not. If it doesn't want to move like this, you can grab your threads and pull it a little to help it, and usually it works. So you go like this, and then when you get to the end, you just leave some thread, and we'll just do a knot. So let me show you. So here I have my little clochette. So I'm just going to make little knots at the ends of my thread to make sure that it stays sewn like this. Cut the threads, and I just have to turn my little clochette and pull on my tie, and ta-da! I have a little clochette. So we'll add our neckline, bias, and our little clochette next. So we have our neckline here, and I have my neckline bias. What I did to prepare it, so I folded it in half, I pressed it, and I took one side and I folded again. That way I have my bias that I can attach to my garment, and then when I'll flip it over, it's going to be already pressed. In the instruction, we tell you to attach it from the front. There's another way that I find really nice also, is to attach it from the back. So we attach it like this, and we sew it. So then when you are going to turn it to the front, you have your piece here, and you can really top stitch and attach it, and it's going to look really clean. So you can do this with this one or with any neckline that you're going to use on any pattern. So I just attach it like this. Like this. So I'll go and sew up to here, and I'll show you the rest. So I sewed my bias around my neckline. So I just did one piece to show you. So you do want to clip your seam. You can even clip it like close to the your stitch line like this. Make sure not to cut the other pieces of your bias. Okay. Oops, I have another little piece there. Okay. So you really want to keep your curve. So you want to place your fabric like this and keep that curve when you press. And be careful to keep the press stitch that you did before. So you just want to press it a little like this. Since we already pressed that edge before, it's really easy to see like the width of a bias, what it's supposed to be. And you don't have all that bulk because we clip the seam allowance. So we want to add our tie and our clochette. So to add it, we are just going to clip the excess here, like this. And we're going to fold it to the inside. Oh, I clipped it maybe a little too much. I could have left myself a little more. And then I put my little tie and I fold. So when I'll go and top stitch around my neckline, I'll grab my tie at the same time. When I have to sew really close to the edge of fabrics, what I love to do is either place my fabric really in the middle of my foot and move my needle from side to side like this. That way I know that I'm going to be really, really close to my fold. Or you can also change your foot and use a foot like a stitch in the ditch foot like this that has a metal piece in the center like this. That way you also move your needle and then you put your fabric at the edge of the metal and you can sew around. The one thing here is if I start at the end of my tie, it's going to be really hard to have like a really nice seam. So a nice stitch line, I mean. So what I like to do is start my fabric like this, but I have to put my needle to the other side since I'm on the other side. So I'll just put my foot down like this and I'll move my needle. You can do tests, but I think this for me would look really nice. So I have my metal plate here close to the edge of my fabric, and then I sew, taking my time. And if I have to stop, I put my needle down, I place my fabric again, and I continue. So here it can be a little hard. Okay, so try to go a little backwards. Okay. I love doing it this method because it looks really clean on the inside, and you're sure that when you're doing your top stitches that you're grabbing everything because it's already sewn to the piece. So when you do it the other way around and you fold like this, sometimes when you do your top stitch, you don't grab your fabric in the back. And as you can see, by taking your time, you can have a stitch line that's really, really close to the edge, and you have your tie and your beautiful little clochette. So now our next step is to sew the sleeve and the two side panels to the sleeve. That way, after we'll be able to do our long French seam that I was explaining at the beginning. So you want to take your sleeve like this, and you want to add your side panels to it. So let me show you. Here we have our pattern piece for the sleeve, and we have our side front bodice and our side back bodice. So it's always the same thing. 2 notches is the back, 1 notch is the front. So don't make the mistake. Here is your side, but here is the piece that you attach to your sleeve. So it's going to be like this. So circle to circle, notch to notch, circle to circle, double notch to double notch. So your piece is going to look like this. So you'll have a curve like this, but with the gathers, it's going to make it less of a curve, so it's going to be easy to sew as a French seam. So let me show you with the fabric. So here I have my sleeve, and this is the back of my sleeve. So I attach my piece there with my beautiful French seam. So I'll do the same thing to the front. So here I have my circle, and if I look, I have my notch, which is a tiny, tiny notch. I could have made it bigger. And here I have my pattern piece. So this is the seam that I want to put with my sleeve. So to do my French seam, again, it's wrong side to wrong side, like this. So again, I'll sew at 3/8. I'll cut. Don't forget to not cut into your gathering threads. And I'll flip, and I'll press again. So I'll go do that on the sewing machine. Now I have my sleeves with my both my sides. So what we just did is this piece here. So you have your sleeve, whoops, wrong side. You have your sleeve like this and your side piece like that. And we already did our front, so now we'll put both together. Like the cooking shows, I already did half of it. So I'll attach my sleeve to the bodice and the one sleeve that I already did. So it's always the same thing. It's going to be wrong side to wrong side, except this time I have to gather the top of my sleeve to fit between my circles. If I show you here, I have my front and my back, and you have circles here. So the gathers are going to start at the circles and gather all the way to the circle in the back, and your side pieces are going to be like this. If I show you here, you have your side panel, and this is where the circle is, so the gathers start there. So now we're going to attach our sleeve to our bodice. We put our circles where the circles are supposed to be. We have to find our center notch, which is always hard for me because I don't do big notches. Yep, found it, it's right there. So again, wrong side to wrong side because we're making French seams. So your notch for your sleeve is going to be where your shoulder seam is. The circle you had on your sleeve and the circle you had on your side piece, you're going to match with the circle on your back piece. So I have to find my circle is here, so I match my circles. I can do the same thing, my bottoms to my bottom, like this. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. When I do gathers on a lightweight fabric like this one, I like to do my stitches shorter. So I'll do them usually at 3.5. Because when I pull, I like my gathers to stay where I tell them to stay. Sometimes when you do your gathers and you use a stitch that's like 5, I don't like it. They have a tendency to move around you, and I don't like that. So I usually do mine at 3.5. So you just want to grab your threads. And now I have so many threads that I have to figure out which one is my gathers. You may want, I never do because I'm lazy, but you may want to use a different color thread for your gather. Okay, so one, you want to do the two of them at the same time. You can even do 3 rows of gathers if you want. I always do 2. So I'm just going to pull my gathers and just distribute them take my time. I don't want to break my thread, and just distribute them like this. So here I have enough gathers between my two needles, so I can take my threads and do a figure 8 around my needle to block them there. And what I like to do is just place them on the table and move them around like this, so that everything looks great, and I have gathers distributed evenly like this. When I'm going to be at the sewing machine, I can move them a little and play with them, but now I'm pretty satisfied, so I can put some pins like that. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So here all my gathered are distributed evenly between my circles, and I have my shoulder seam and my side for my bodice, and I'm doing French seams, so I'm wrong side to wrong side. I'll go on the sewing machine and I'll sew at 3/8. When I get to the gathers, I'll take off my pin where I did my figure 8 with my threads, and I'll just put my threads to the side because I don't want to sew that figure 8. And I'm going to take my time and make sure that both my fabric are one on top of the other, and I'm going to continue sewing at 3/8. And as I sew, I'm always going to place my gathers perpendicularly, like this, so they stay very beautiful while I sew. I'm going to take off my pin, and I continue like this. And once in a while, you want to check that the fabric under is placed properly and that you're not grabbing it at another place, and that everything is doing great. I see here that I don't like the way my gathers look, so I can just push the fabric a little like this, and I like it better now, so I can continue sewing. If your fabric under moves a little, you can always realign your things. Okay. So I sewed my first line, my first stitch line at 3/8, and I have a lot of threads, so I can already remove my first line of gathering stitches that I did at a quarter. So I just have to find the right thread. And pull on it gently. And I'm going to cut my seam allowance really close to my stitch line. And we're going to press and fold it again to do our French seam. So I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut close to my stitch line, making sure not to cut anything else. I trimmed my seam allowance really close to my stitch line, and I still have my gathering stitch line here. So what I want to do is I want to press, And we are going to do something that we usually never do. We're going to press our gathers a little, and that's going to help us sew our French seam. So usually you don't want to press your gathers. You want to keep them nice and fluffy, but for now we do want to press them to be able to include them in our French seam. So I'm giving them a little press, but don't worry, after when you're going to put your dress in the sewing machine and the dryer or air dry, they're going to fluff back up, so it won't be a problem. It's just to help us sew our seam. So now we turn our shoulder seam and our side seams like this, and we can press it again. I like to press my seams to make them look like nice and crisp. You could do it without pressing. You could sew your 1/4 inch without pressing, but I find it really beautiful when you press everything, and it makes for a very professional looking garment, and that's what we want. So take time to press your seams properly all the time. Super important. Okay, so now my seam is all pressed, and I'll go back in the sewing machine and I'll stitch at 1/4 all the way. Here I'm on my second pass, so I'm going to follow my 1/4 inch marking, and I'm gonna start sewing at 1/4. When I get up to my gathers, I want to place my fabric again perpendicularly like that, and really place my gathers to make them look nice. And since I pressed them, it's really easier to sew again at my 1/4 inch. Like this. So here you have that seam, which looks pretty straight to me. So it was easy to do a beautiful French seam, and you have the beginning or almost the end of your top of your dress, just like this one that I already made. So the next step is to add our cuff to our sleeve. So you just have to take your pattern piece for your sleeve. Excuse me, I'll be back. So I prepared my piece. I folded in half, and one side I folded again. And just like I did for the bias at the neckline, I'm going to put it on the wrong side. So what I want to do, I can, just a little trick, fold it in half, put a pin to know the half point. Do the same thing with my shoulder. I'm pretty sure we put a notch and I forgot to put it. Yeah. And now I'm going to match both my pins together. So I'm going to do my seam here, like this, my centers, like this. And the other end. And just like I did with my shoulder, my sleeve, I'm going to grab both my threads and pull together the hem of my sleeve to fit the cuff length. and I gather it to the same length of my cuff. So now I sewed my cuff to my sleeve, and I can remove my gathering thread, cut my seam allowance, and the next step is going to add our skirt panels to our front and back, and our cuff is going to be finished at the end of our dress. I'm going to explain to you how to sew in your pockets using a French seam, and I'm going to show it to you two ways, and they are optional. So if you don't want to put pockets in, you don't, but us girls usually like pockets. So let me show you with the pattern. So you have your skirt panels, you need 4. So you're going to sew 2 together for the front, 2 together for the back, and you have your little pocket. So let me show you here. So usually we'll sew circle to circle, open our pocket, and then top stitch, and then stitch around with both our layers together. So we can do that with our French seam, but we can also use another way. If you match your circles like this, and you scotch tape, and you cut your skirt panel, including your pocket, like this, you can do a French seam which has less bulk at the pocket opening. So let me show you with fabric. So here I included my pocket with my, my skirt panels. So I'll do like I showed you for the, all the other French seams. I'll put my wrong sides together, so at 3/8, and here I'll pivot, and then I will turn it around, clip my seam, turn it around, and when you do your quarter, stitch all around again. Here inside you're going to want to clip just to give you like a hinge, and turn and continue your 1/4 inch seam, and it's going to give you a beautiful French seam. So that's one way of doing it. I'm going to show you the way we are going to do it together. Here is one side I already did. So you have a beautiful pocket. That's all French seams, so it's all clean everywhere like this. So we're going to take our side panel of our skirt and match our circles with the circles you have on your pocket piece. So matching them wrong sides together again, because we are doing French seams. So wrong sides together, I'm matching the circles on my skirt panel and my notch to my pocket. So just like you will normally do, except that we're wrong sides together. And I'm going to sew from circle to circle at 3/8. So here, I don't know if you can see it properly, but I have my circle, and I'm at my 3/8 seam allowance. I'm going to put my foot down, and I'm going to sew all the way up to my other circle. Okay, so here I'm just going to cut my little threads. So I sewed from circle to circle. I'm going to, starting at my circle, I'm going to clip in my seam allowance like I did all my other seams, close to my stitch line. Like this. I'm going to press my seam to one side. and on itself again, like this. And from circle to circle, I'm going to sew at 1/4. I'm going to press my seam towards my pocket like this. I grabbed a little of my seam allowance inside my stitch, so I'm just going to clip it a little more. And here I can just take that out so that my seam allowance is towards the outside. And I'm going to look at the other side too. Here, both of them are okay. So now I have the opening of my my pocket, and I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. And when I look at my pocket, let me put my, like this is the front of my skirt. So the top of my pocket here, you always want to do a little stay stitch so that it stays, the seam allowance stays like really nice and crisp like that. So we're going to look at which one. So the next one, the one we haven't done is the one that's going to be our top pocket. So that one we're going to do a little under stitch. And this one is the one that's the inside. So this one we leave like this. I'm going to attach the other pocket off camera, and after we can continue. So see you in a bit. Now we're going to attach our bodice to our skirt panels. You can do this two ways. You can either sew the side seams of your bodice and sew the side seams of your skirt and then attach the two of them together. Or you can attach your front skirt panels to your front bodice, back skirt panels to your back bodice. And then we do the side seams from the sleeve cuff all the way down to your skirt hem. So here I did already one side of the skirt panels, like I showed you the pocket. So we are going to attach now our gathers to our bodice, and you're going to see the two ways of doing it in the same example. So fast and easy. So I have my bodice hidden like my kitchen show. So on one side, I already sew my side seam. So here I have my sleeve and my side seam. So I can attach this to my skirt. So here I have my skirt side seam with my pocket. So I will attach them together, and we're still doing our French seams. So it's wrong side to wrong side again. So I'll put my wrong sides together at the side seam. Before I start gathering, I have two little tricks I would like to explain. Well, one is not a trick, one is something I forgot. Before you start putting your bodice to your skirt, you have to sew your skirt panels together. It's very important because nothing's gonna work if you don't. So you have your two panels for your front, so you want to do a normal, straight, easy French seam at the center front, same thing at the center back. And when I do my gathering stitches, when I have panels like that, I won't do like a whole thing and then try to figure out how to gather everything around. What I like to do is do my 2 rows of gathers per panel. So I'll do like 2 rows for here and leave my threads, 2 rows there, leave my big threads, and I'll do everything. Except when I'm over a seam like this, I'll overlap to make sure that I still have gathers at the center seams, because sometimes if you don't overlap, you're gonna end up with like one little space that has no gathers. So overlapping is your trick, and that way you're sure that you have beautiful gathers here and at your side seams also. So that's what I did. I did a little overlapping. So I took my whole dress and I pinned at my side seams, at my, it's a lot of panels, so I get confused sometimes. So here I have my center front, side seam, center back, and all the way to the other side. So if you decided to sew both your side seam bodice, then you would just pin everything in a circle. But since I want to show you one side that we do the side seam all the way from the bodice to your skirt, I have one side that is open, so I'm in a line. So I'll take just like section by section and gather. And it's labor of love.
Few hours later.
So the gathering of the skirt is done. Thank God Muncie is there behind the camera to help me. So it's all done. So as we did before, we're going to sew at 3/8 and chop the seam allowance. Do another pass at 1/4. So I'll go on the sewing machine. So I'll see you when I'm done. It's the Frankenstein dress again. Okay. So behind the seams, no, the scene, I was pinning the side seam so we can continue our dress, and then I went, oops. I realized that by attaching our cuff before doing our side seam, we would do a French seam on our cuff, which would be visible. And I should have thought about it because that's what happened yesterday when I prepared and I did the other one. So, a little cuckoo, I forgot, but it's like a little something. It doesn't really show, you're the only one who knows, and it's a little thing between you and me. So it's not that bad. Let's say we forget about it and it's okay. So we're going to pin wrong sides together, again, our side seam, and making sure that our pockets are matching, and pin our side seam. When you get to that little bulk here, what I did is I just like cut the little rectangle excess like this, but I waited at the last minute just to make sure that everything was matching and everything was okay. So you can just chop off that excess like this and match your seams and all around your pockets like this, all the way to the hem of your skirt. Okay, now I'm going to go on the sewing machine and sew at 3/8. And you can cheat a little sometimes when you're sewing to make, not to make like sharp corners, so you can round a little your seam, like under the arm, you can just give it a tiny curve instead of a sharp angle. So let's just say I go like this, making sure to match your skirt panels. Whoops, see, I made a boo-boo. I go back. I was going at 1/4, I don't know why. So let's start again. Okay. When you get up to the pocket, you're going to sew grabbing the little tails of your pocket. It's going to be hidden inside our seam allowance anyway, so, or French seam, I mean. So you just want to put them a little to the sides to make sure they're not like outside your seam. So just fold them. Let me fold it again properly. So boop, like this, and continue sewing at 3/8. So when you get close to the circle, remember, you're going to do a quarter after. So when you get like a quarter from the circle, a quarter inch, you can pivot and continue sewing at 3/8. I'm sewing on my pins, but it's not good practice. Okay. And when you get to the bottom of your pocket, it's the same thing. It's just that the angle is a little sharper, so you just want to make sure that everybody is matching and is on top of the others, so you can look under and make sure that everybody is okay. Okay, like this. Okay, and here you have to do like a sharp angle. You have no choice, so I'm going to remove my pin, pivot, and continue sewing at, see here my fabric is not placed properly. Okay. And here I'm going to continue at 1 centimeter, or 3/8, sorry. Okay. I sewed all the way around my side seam. I'm just going to cut my excess seam. Here at the pocket, I cut it really close to my stitches. Same thing around here. So all around my pocket, I really want to leave like a tiny, tiny seam allowance because I have a curve. And when I get to my corner here, like I was saying, like it doesn't look like super clean, but what I do is I cut the seam allowance like really close to my pivot point. I look on the other side to make sure that everything is okay. Here I have a little bit of fabric, so I can just take it out. What you can also do is clip a little at an angle here to make it more like flexible. And you want to be sure not to cut any other layers. So, and we go all the way down the skirt. There we go. And now I'm going to press my seam up to my pocket, and then past my pocket I can do it again. So now the same way I did in the other steps, I'm going to flatten my seam, press it when I get to my pocket. So here I'm okay, you can see that it falls beautifully. I'm just gonna wiggle the fabric between my fingers to have the stitch line right in the middle. And I'm going to press my pocket. I'm going to do the same thing all the way around, making sure not to burn myself. Okay, when I get to the bottom of my pocket, that's the tricky part. So I want to lay everything flat like this. And I want to see how my pocket, here it seems to fall fine. Looks pretty good to me. So I can press the rest of my seam. And if it doesn't fall like you want, you can always undo little stitches here. And now you want to sew, just like we did, at a quarter all around and pivot where we pivoted before, making sure to sew at the circle and pivot and come back again and down the other way. I'll show you a finished one on the other side. So you see my circle there, my other circle is here. So I sewed at a quarter, I pivoted just a little past my circle, all around my pocket, the other side, pivoted again, all the way to my seam. So it's nice and clean. And when I put it the right side, what's really, I think the most important thing is to put your pocket to the front and place it without like wrinkles or anything, like really the way it's supposed to fall. And you want to press your side seam where your pocket opening is and check the beginning of your pocket and the end, making sure it looks nice. So here is your finished pocket with your beautiful French seam. So the only thing that we have to do is finish our cuff and our hem. So our cuff, we just already had pressed in half and in a quarter again. So we put it to the right side, and just like our bias around our collar, our neckline, I mean, you just want to stitch really close to the fold line all the way around to make like a really beautiful finished cuff. And the hem, this one we just turn a quarter of inch and another quarter of inch, and we stitch really close to the first fold line, sorry. So a little trick I'd like to give you about hems. When I have little hems like that, what I like to do is, if I have my serger close to me with the good thread, the good color, I'll just do one pass on the serger, and the serger's thread is around a quarter of an inch. So I'll use that as a guide. So I'll just turn the width of the serge edge, and I'll turn it again, and I'll just then sew the hem on the sewing machine. So it's like a really fast way of doing it. Or like I did with this one. So here I went all around my skirt and I sewed with long stitches at a quarter from the raw edge. I pressed at that thread line, and then I just pressed the same width. So it's just turning the fabric again, pressing it again. And let me show you a part here that I did. I just stitched it like really close to this fold edge and keeping it really clean. So, and pressing it really good after, so you have a beautiful tiny edge. And the same thing for your sleeve cuff. You're just going to stitch really close to the edge here, and it's going to do the same finish as your bias neckline here. So everything is nice, everything looks beautiful on the inside as on the outside. Even the top of your sleeve with the gathers, it looks all nice and clean. So our beautiful dress is done, and we've done all our techniques with the French seams. Try it on other dresses. Don't forget to analyze your pattern before. So I hope you liked it, and I know what's the next sew along, and I think you guys are going to be really excited. So see you next time. Bye.